Okay. So, as I told you yesterday, these the last two sessions are going to be once again, what I did this morning was, if you will see how practical it is and why it is practical in the way I'm translating all, or I'm trying to get the approaches thought in the light of these overall understanding. So when it comes to economy and what we call Islamic economy or Islamic finance, do we have today an alternative economic project? And I would say that if you look at what is produced or proposed by the scholars in the field of economy or finance, it's a problem. Why? Because once again, there is a sense of we compete in what is proposed by the dominant ideology, and we try to find a way to make it more Islamic, or to protect ourselves from what is not Islamic or not perceived as Islamic in legal terms. While, again, the big question when it comes to economy is to just start with defining what we understand by economy, this distribution of production and distribution of wealth, and in which way we accept from the very beginning that there is something called al-bay' that is permitted, and riba which is not, but meaning that trading, giving, offer, and demands, and all this is something which is part of our life. It's the production of goods and the distribution. So what is important in this whole philosophy, which is also an economic philosophy or philosophy of economics, is based on something which is central, that we need to produce and we need to distribute our productions, and it's based on the very understanding of what is halal and what is haram. The fact that al-bay' is halal and al-riba is haram mean there is a way of dealing with the trade which is wrong, while the fact is there. If we come to the big picture, we understand that what is at the center of the economic project, or the way our message is understanding economy is economy should serve human beings. So the center is humanity. Is all what you do is to serve your need, and the humanity should be at the center, and this service should be as well, of course, practical in the way you have to deal with this. So let me just come with a point that I had here. Okay, having said that, in our understanding here, the centrality of humanity in the whole economic, or the understanding of what economy is all about, production, distribution of wealth, and serving humanity, is questioning the very essence of what are the goals. So people are saying, البيع مثل الربا. ذلك بأنهم قالوا البيع مثل الربا. They are saying, in fact, that the way you trade is exactly the way what we are doing is using the interest. And then the answer is no. God permitted al-bay', but riba is prohibited. Meaning, be careful, if you go that direction in the interest, is that you are missing the goal. You are not serving humanity through trade, you are serving another goal, which is what? Profit. your profit. It's money making money. And it could be that all the understanding, and this is why what you were saying yesterday, we might have different technical translation of what is riba, but in fact the very understanding of why riba is said to be in the Quran prohibited is that it's the very goal of what riba was there, which means in fact the whole thing is to transform what could be the right profit for you need, having humanity at the center of the process, to change this and to put profit by money making money, which means that what was a means become the end of the whole system. What I told you yesterday, it's important. When your means become the goals, there is the starting point of shirk. And here, the means to get some profit to survive becomes the very goal of the whole economic system, which is distorting the whole point. And then what you have in the Quran is riba, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الرِّبَى الْبَيْعُ وَأَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. So as what I said. So this is something which is important, which is not the other way around. I have to be careful. So أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعُ, meaning there is something which is part of the natural law, the very essence of what a society is. If you don't do this, if you don't do that, فَأْذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. Be prepared, you are at war with God. Meaning what? You change the very goal of the whole economic system. And the very goal of the economic system is check your need, serve humanity, not in the name of your need, make profit the goal. So it means that in the overall understanding of the economic system, there is something which has to do with shirk. It's when the being is left in the name of the havings, and serving humanity is left for the sake of the profit. Profit should have been a driving, and this is, by the way, something which is interesting. Why in Islam there is an acceptance of the private property? Because at the end, of course, you are going to work for your interest, but with conditions. The conditions are ethical, conditions that should be ethical, and at the end, what you are trying to get is not money for the sake of money, but money for the sake of your living, is your own dignity, not being obsessed with having and having more, because this is what we have in the Quran, which is the starting point of being lost. And if you do this, you are at war. So this is why in the book that I wrote, Western Muslims and the Future of Islam, I was very critical about what is called Islamic economy or Islamic finance, because my point was to enter into this discussion into the technical side of how we make the means halal, what getting the whole picture that the whole system is haram. And I was in this saying that the whole terminology, Dar al-Harb wa Dar al-Islam, are outdated. I don't think that there is somewhere Dar al-Islam, and we are not in Dar al-Harb today. You today have more freedom to perform or to live by the standards of your faith in the West than in many Muslim majority countries. That's not by accident that myself and so many others, we cannot go there, because we are not free to speak, free to think, free to criticize. And if you look at what is happening in some of the Muslim majority countries, you know that. So the old category, and this is why I'm saying the world, the globalization is making the world Dar al-Shahada. But we still have Alam al-Harb, or the globalized economy. It's today Alam al-Harb. It means that this global system is in fact the translation of a war against what Allah is asking us. An economy which has not at the center serving ethically humanity is going to corrupt the whole system. Whatever is your political systems, your educational systems, it's pure distraction. And this is why I'm sorry with many of the people who are involved in political Islam and say, you know, the problem that you have, political Islam, is that it's too much political. So you don't get it. What is the economic alternative that you are proposing? And this is where, not having another overall perception, we end up coming with, let us now come with what I told you yesterday, Islamizing the means. And what we keep on repeating, riba is haram, speculation is haram, zakat is a duty. And then you go for that. And you try, in a technical way, to enter into the global system and to try to find niche where this is where it's going to be halal. And if you don't enter in an ethical discussion with the global or the overall vision, and you come to this and say, I am questioning the very goal of the economic system, you are going to have halal means that, in fact, instead of changing the paradigm, you are confirming it. So you go to HSBC and said, you know, there is a desk, Sharia compliant. Go there, it's halal. You go there, and in an ocean of haram, you have a desk of halal. And you can say, at least it's halal. Halal means, not the vision, I'm making as much money as they are making. They haram as halal. But the most important thing is not that. Is that this desk is confirming the whole system. By adapting to the system, you confirm the system itself because the system likes to have some slight opposition. And then, you know what? Subhanallah. Some of the scholars I respect too much say, you know what? They came to us and said, you know, your Islamic economy, that's very good. I'm going to bring it. The only field where the French government is happy with Sharia is in finance. And say, veil, haram, no. Illegal. Laïcité, no way. Here, what? And then you come to, what was the name of the previous prime minister? Huh? Golden Brown. He was invited in an Islamic finance conference. Yes, that's good. And the Muslims are here say, they are acknowledging that this is very powerful. No, they are just acknowledging it's a market. Okay, we are making money. So even Lagarde at the IMF, she's ready to speak about Sharia. Sharia is not a dirty word when it comes to money. With all the Gulf states, you can say whatever you want. We are going to give you even the technicalities to make halal what is known as haram, and you transform the means. This is what we are doing. And that's the problem. And you go as far as to say, you know, there is something which is called Islamic banks. Don't you have to question the very essence of what a bank is and how it works and how the profits are made? It's not to say that the bank system is wrong, but at least you have to question the goals. That's my point. My point is today, in that field, and I can tell you that if you read books, very sophisticated knowledge about the technicalities, and you sit with some economists, you say, you know what, they were just asking us to change the names of the thing because it shouldn't be interest, it should be administrative costs and expenses. I'm not saying here that what was done is not interesting. It is. But it cannot be done without questioning the overall system and saying we might need the needs today to adapt if and only if we know in which way we are trying to transform the whole paradigm by questioning the very essence of the economic system. But to end up having as I told you yesterday, people that, once again, I love them in the way they are dealing with Islamic knowledge. But when it comes to these questions, sometimes it's very simplistic and very dangerous, what they are proposing as the Islamic. It's not even an Islamic alternative. It is Islamic adaptation by saying, as I told you, رأس مالية مقيدة, meaning regulated capitalism. And this is a problem, because is it possible to have an ethical capitalism if at the center of the whole system, profit is what you are looking for? And organizations that were involved in investment or ethical investment, they were even attracting Muslims by saying, you know, you are going to have 30% interest. They were not saying interest, but profit. So it's not interest, it's profit, it's trade. And the people who are going there is that, oh, I'm going to get more money with halal means. But the point is this what you want? Is it about getting more money in such a way that you are just trying to change the means? And then you come and you try to understand, are there alternatives around the world? And as I told you, for example, in microfinance, in local activities, in people who are working, sometimes when I went to Latin America, when I went to Brazil, I saw projects there that were much more Islamic than what we are doing in Muslim majority countries, much more Islamic than what I saw in Malaysia. My book, Western Muslims and the Future of Islam, was banned from Malaysia for 8 years because of what I was saying about economy, because I was not trusting. This has nothing to do with what I call an Islamic project in economic terms. So ban it, which is very Islamic. So if you don't agree, just halas. So once again, what are we proposing? And this is maybe the more difficult topic, the more difficult field, because today, even the people who are resisting, the people who are calling themselves alter globalizers, they know how to be against, but which alternative model? We don't. There is no economic alternative model. Nothing. And if you think that what we have in economic finance today is an alternative model, it's not. It's within the system a way to protect. It's very protective. But I want you to understand this. You know the disease that we have in every field, in politics, in economy, in sciences, is the defensive approach. It's always resisting, and we think that we are more Islamic when we resist, but not bringing something. To all what I said yesterday in ethical terms, so I want a set of economic, ethical values that are going to help us to think about an alternative at the overall level, then helping us to have a practical way of dealing with it at the local level. And sometimes, for example, what I saw in Africa and Latin America was a local project on microfinance, working with no interest, with no speculation, trying to work with the dynamic force, and some working in Malaysia far from the government and trying. And by the way, when the people are talking about, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood, and the fact that, you know, I'm the grandson and bringing me always to this, and asking me, where do you stand on this? There are many things with the organization. I'm not a member of the organization. I never was. I'm very critical about what they are doing now. But when I come back to, people are saying, what are you saying about your grandfather? Many good things. Many good things. He resisted the British colonization. I would be on the same side. He said no to cultural colonization. I would be on the right side. He said no to violence, yes to education. I will be on the same side. He started 2,000 schools for women. I would be on the same side. Now, the way he was translating this in his period of time with this organization, I might not agree with the structure of the organization, which for me was problematic, with him being the charismatic leader and creating a problem straight when he passed away. But this is another story. But what is not talked about is not the way he was educating people, is the economic alternative system he has at the grassroots level, which was so powerful that this is the first thing that Gamal Abdel Nasser stopped by saying these people are dangerous. It was at the grassroots level, something that you find in Latin America called the economic liberation process, which is this bring the people together, let them put the money, have something which has to do with the economic sector. And he was the first, 15 years before Jamal Abdel Nasser, saying the only way forward in the southern Egypt is land reform, taking from the landlord and dividing and letting the people creating this, and having small, middle, and big enterprises with more than 18,000 people putting the money to make it survive. This is why it was independent, destroyed from the beginning. This is not talked about. It's talked about Islamic State and Sharia. Why? Because this was the most dangerous thing, which is exactly what you see doing at the grassroots level. Said al-Nursi, Ibn Badis, they were starting at the level of an alternative economic project, which was much more powerful than just seeking state power. But my point here is to look at what we are now, coming from Latin America, coming from southern countries. What is the alternative model? How are you going today to deal with something which is taken for granted, is that the free market is the only reference and you have to deal with it? Do we agree with this? How? So this is the question. Second, you see here how the global picture or the overall picture has to do with the way you are going to deal with it. If you don't get the big one, you are going to come with an adaptational way of dealing, and it's a problem. And I can tell you that when we brought together the scholars of the text and the context, many of the economists was listening to the scholars say, what's that? What's that? That's so simplistic. They don't get it. They don't have it. So they don't understand. And once again, being sometimes completely misled by this understanding of what is attracted or what is attracting in the project itself. The second thing that I wanted to say, it's exactly the same in medical sciences. So I'm just introducing, now after this we'll have almost 1 hour discussion. Am I still in my 15 minutes? Or?
5 more minutes for medicine.
Okay, that's fine. No, but it's exactly the same. I just want you to understand the logic. When you have, for example, and this is something which is very good, scholars in 81, in fact, it's the field where the ulama, fuqaha, had no choice but to acknowledge the fact that they don't know how it works. So this is too dangerous to say, okay, give a fatwa on the way your health or your body is working. So they are acknowledging that they need physicians to be part. In 81, we have this Islamic Organization of Medical Science. Lots of discussion about how to call it. At the end, Islamic organization. What is Islamic? Is the organization of medical science. Medical science is for everybody. It's not Islamic medical science. So it's the way to deal with medical science, and then they brought together scholars and then to come to how are we going to deal with this in the fatwa. And this is where, if you compare to all the other sciences, this is where the Muslim scholars were and still are the more updated. They are at the forefront of all the contemporary discussion about cloning, about euthanasia, about it's there. They are working together, and which is good. The problem is it a step, or are we again talking about something which is bigger than that? Because in fact, there are three concerns. Is when you come and you start talking about the body and you start talking about health, what is to be in a good health? No disease? Or is it deeper than that? What is the definition? For example, in a discussion that we had in Qatar, we had a discussion, it was in bioethics, between Bichan, who is the specialist of the principologist in Washington. He was with us. And Raisuni, Ahmad Sheikh Raisuni, who is the one who is the reference in the Maqasid theory. And at the end, Raisuni was listening to all this and say, no, we have to stop. We have to define what is health. So all the discussion about the details, and he come back and say, what is health? And what is the definition of health? Is it just to come to the technicality the medical doctors are going to prevent you from disease, or is it something which is deeper than that? The physical, psychological, and spiritual side of being in a good health. What does it mean in our society to be healthy? So once again, that's also something which is important. If you end up transforming medicine into chemistry and technical way of dealing with the disease, you are reducing it, and what we want is give me the Islamic halal means to deal with the disease, but not an Islamic vision of what it means to be, how do we define well-being? So much so that we know now that many of our disease is psychosomatic, so it has to do with the state of your psychology, the state of your, so it's deep here. And if you don't do this, so once again, the human person, the human being is reduced in the overall understanding of what medicine is all about now in a way which is very problematic, very problematic. That's the first. So how do we define health? And by saying this, how do you define medicine and in which way we have to deal with this? So once again, here I'm talking about the goal. What are you trying to achieve? And it means here that the absence of disease is still not defining well-being in the way you are with your body, in the way you are with yourself. This is something which is a big question because at one point, when do you start talking about obesity, for example, in our society? When do you start talking about overconsumption in our society? Dealing with health. So you see here, you need a transdisciplinary approach between everything which has to do with the consumerist society and defining health. Because, and this comes the second point, when it comes to this, is that we understand that it has to do also with very deep question when it comes to new techniques that we have, for example, connected to the culture. So for example, now you have to connect medicine with a specific cultural and economic environment. When, for example, you have to deal with a question which is euthanasia. Many scholars are saying euthanasia doesn't exist in Islam because they don't know that even in the field of medicine there are at least 9 different types of euthanasia. You have the active, the passive, the direct, the indirect in both things. Anyway, passive in Islam is accepted. If, for example, you know that it's the terminal, the final stage, and there is suffering, to give morphine, knowing that it's going to reduce the time span, but you are in the final stage. This is something which is accepted. We are not celebrating suffering when the medical doctors are saying it's the end, it's the final stage. So you can lower the suffering by giving morphine, knowing that this is going to have an impact on the potential time left. This is passive, and it could be indirect at the same. Active, it's not Islamic. But this is also something which is important. When you come to this discussion, and you have people saying, but we might have to think about palliative care, which is how do you go along with somebody when he or she is going to die? So this has an impact on what? On economy and in the way you look at old people in your society or people who are not economically useful. But we have to pay. Yes. So if you come to the scholars, they say, is it possible? He's going to go to the detail, not getting the whole picture. It's a social question. It's a social and economic question that you have to get. And to the point that here, once again, we can be very right in technical answer in medicine, but this is missing the point of questioning the whole structure. What is good health? What is well-being? And how do we deal with people who are facing problems and they are facing this final stage where do we have to go with them and to help them to have a good death? Because euthanasia is about good death, as you have good life. How do you do this? Don't we have, we Muslims, something to say about the way we live and the way we live? That's essential. And if you come with the practical thing, you can have halal way or haram way, but it's not questioning the whole system. Add to this that there is no decision taking in the field of medicine which is not connected to the economic system. So, for example, when you have organ donation, is it possible in Islam? Yes, except for the consensus of the scholar on reproductive organs. Anything else is possible. This is the majority position of the Muslims. Okay, that's fine. But when, for example, you have a way of dealing with poor people and old people in some hospitals, there are conflict of interest when it comes to this, to the point that in the United States of America, one of the great advocates of organ donation started by saying the economic system is pushing injustice on the field of medicine because, in fact, we are supporting the rich against the poor people. Why? Because at the end, you know that there are conflicting interests. In my country, Geneva, the doctor that is going to say to the family, your father or your relative is dead, is not the same asking for the organ. Not to make a conflict of interest. They say, you know what? He's dead. In the way you can put it. But this is not the main thing. It's the economic pressure on when somebody is under treatment. How long are you going to treat him or her knowing that you are paying money and somebody is waiting? Halal? Hurry up? That's a big question. The scholar, not knowing this, don't know that the physicians are dealing with things day in, day out. That you have to deal with this. So that there is no medicine without the economic system and the global picture. So you can have halal, detailed answer, or an answer on the detail saying it's halal, but it's not there. Once, and he revised his position on this, Sheikh al-Qaradawi was saying, if the poor, you know, your body, it's you don't have the ownership of your body, but you can use it. You are managing it. You own Khalifa, so it's mine. And if I don't have money, if I'm going to die out of poverty, couldn't I sell something? It's organ donation or trade. If I'm going to die, can't I use this? If, for example, I can give something which is not going to have an impact on my health, why not? In absolute term, organ donation is permitted for poor people while they are going to die. Why not to give something that is going to make them survive? Say this possible. You take a step back and say, wow, that's the open door for the deepest, greatest exploitation of the poor people around the world. Because you need to get the economic thing, the overall picture. I can understand on the individual, but that's not going to work. In fact, the overall picture is telling you never. Organ donation is about donate. It's about giving. It's not about selling. And if we say selling, it means that we are opening the door to structural exploitation of people going to the south and buying. And say, you are poor. So by refusing the system of exploitation, you end up having a clear understanding of what is your medical answer here. You understand the connection? If you don't have this, if you don't have this transdisciplinary approach, understanding how connected it is, you are coming with an ethical answer in medicine on fatwa that could be right on the detail, completely wrong when it comes to the whole discussion. So these are fragmented approaches, and isolated, and it's very dangerous because if you... So who is going to give this knowledge to the scholars? Do you think that with all that they are studying, with the Quran, with Sunnah, the Hadith and everything, they can get the complexification of the world, how much it's complicated here? Or for example, what is our take on generic medicine? Why are the Muslims saying that it's insane to have so many people dying from AIDS in South Africa, and we don't say anything about these transnational pharmaceutical corporations that are preventing the people from being saved? We are silent. But this is connected. This is economy, and this is medicine, and it means it's my right to have access to generic medicine. That's my right. So your answer on this has an impact, and it's connected to this. Once again, get my point right. You can't come with a clear ethical alternative if you start with the detail and don't get the whole picture. And we don't get the goal. Okay? So this is the introductory remarks. It's for you now to open the discussion.